confused.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 3rd, 2022 Todd County Board of Commissioners meeting. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Erickson, who is absent, along with the Auditor Treasurer, Coordinator, and County Attorney's Office. Would you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, good morning. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion. If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Consent items.
Today we have meeting minute approval for April 19th, 2022. Approval of Chris Arns P&Z Land Use Planner Retirement, May 6th, 2022. Appoint Financial Support Services Supervisor Steve McCoy, 5/8/2022.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion.
I want to thank Chris for his service to the county.
Yeah, me too.
How many years has he been with the county?
Yeah,
11?
11. Okay. Any other discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Carried. Thank you.
The first item I have today is the auditor warrants. Background was sent for review. Recommendation to approve the April 2022 auditor warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $606,834.35.
You've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Motion by Becker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion? If none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
The next item I have is the commissioner warrants. Background was sent for a review. Recommendation is to approve the commissioner's warrant with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $132,573.66.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion? If none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
The next item I have then is the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Again, background was sent for a review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $41,768.28.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion? If none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
The next item then is the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $67,803.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Motion by Becker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion? None, roll call?
Commissioner Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel,
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman.
Yes.
Let's see, we're on the adopt and revise the county providing technology joint powers agreement. The background here is the attached joint powers agreement has been approved by the CPT board and now necessitates adoption by each member county. The revised GPA is allowing for the addition of a new member, Pope County. Your options are to adopt the CPT joint powers agreement or do not adopt the CPT joint powers agreement. It is the recommendation to adopt the revised counties providing professional technology joint powers agreement as presented.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion. A little bit of follow-up on this. When CPT first started with all the counties, Pope County paid $55,000 for a rewrite. So they were kind of in it, but didn't have any voting power. Well, the county board and Pope decided to join CPT. So the board approved it over there, and we have to bring the contract back and revise it. So that's why we're doing this, because now Pope is official member of CPT.
How many counties are in that, Randy?
24. Plus we do 7 counties in North Dakota. So it's growing, so. Any other discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
2022 Memorial Day appropriation. Background was Todd County has included in the 2022 budget annual appropriations to aid in the observance of the Memorial Day within the perimeters of the Minnesota Statute 375.34 and 375.35. Your options are to adopt the attached resolution for the 2022 Memorial Day appropriations or do not. The recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution for the 2022 Memorial Day appropriations to organizations within Todd County.
Okay, you've heard the requests. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, have we ever increased that?
We did a few years back,
Okay.
yeah. Thinking it's $200 to the Evergreen, and then $50 to every Veterans of Foreign War. So they're all getting 200, and then the veterans are getting 50. I
Thank you.
thought there was a list here. Yeah, here's the list.
I just wondered if we'd ever.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And then we also have the Senior Citizen Center appropriations. Background is Todd County has included in the 2022 budget annual appropriations to senior citizen centers within the boundaries. Your options are to adopt the attached resolution for appropriation or do not. The recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution for the 2022 Senior Citizen Center appropriations to organizations within Todd County. There's the resolution for $200, and I think the list is right there, yep.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion. If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Clifton, Larson, Allen. Morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here, and holy cow, you're right on track or right on schedule. So I'll do my best to keep it that way. I am Doug Host, a principal with Clifton, Larson, Allen, and I'm happy to be here today to present, I believe, the first county audit done in the state of Minnesota, as a number of other years. So I will walk you through this PowerPoint. Here's the topics I got to touch on today. And as far as required communications, audit standards dictate what we have to test and what we have to report, and one of those requirements has us provide a letter to the board with a bunch of boilerplate stuff, just like in the past. I'll touch on the high points. You know, we didn't encounter any difficulties in performing the audit. If we did, you wouldn't be done already, so that's great. Actually, this year's audit was done 8 days earlier than last year's even, so thank you to all the staff at the county for just allowing us to really crank through the stuff we got to do. But we didn't have any difficulties, no disagreements with management, and in the end, we have to issue an opinion on your financial statements, and we again issued a clean opinion. The audit standards also require us to test your internal controls and then report the results of our testing. And there were 3 items that have been around for a couple years. They're common for almost all counties in the state, but I'm just required to communicate to you in regards to segregation of duties. Not all departments have full segregation of the accounting functions. We made a couple audit adjustments as we're working on putting the bound financial statements together. We don't enter anything into your general ledger, but there's some things just needed to be moved around for reporting purposes. And lastly, just from a clerical standpoint, we have a software that allows us to put this 111, 13-page document together, and we're just required to communicate that to you. So nothing new or jumped out this year. On the next page, we're also required to communicate any significant deficiencies that we identify in performing our audit, and I'm happy to report there are none for 2021. We also are required to test your compliance with various state statutes over cash investments, disbursements, contracting, and there's 2 items that have been around that we reported last year as well. The first one dealing with some of your ditches have deficit cash balances. This is very, very common for counties that have ditches, so we're just required to communicate that to you. And then there's a statute regarding the publishing of disbursements. The county publishes all the checks that are approved. And there's a statute that says, well, if it's a credit card company, it really should be the underlying businesses where those purchases were made, but not a big deal. We're just required to communicate that item as well. We also audit your compliance with various federal guidelines, and it's called the single audit. The 2 programs we tested this year were highway planning and construction and medical assistance. And I'm very happy to report there were no findings in internal controls or for your compliance with the federal requirements over those 2 programs. If you remember last year, we had audited the CARES program, and we were actually able to resolve 3 of the issues we reported last year in this year's audit in the single audit area. So great job there. Next year, we'll probably have the ARPA program if you get those expenditures spent there. So from a financial standpoint, how'd the county do for the year? I'd say pretty good. This is a chart we've included in the past, and this is the number of months of expenditures or your reserves that you have built up. And as you can see, it's up a little bit over 2020. Part of that would be receiving the ARPA money that's currently sitting unspent. So overall, in the past, I've said there's no law or requirement to have a minimum fund balance, but the state auditors and other national organizations, and I agree with as well, that you should have no less than 5 months. And sure, you're sitting at 8 months at the end of 2021. But again, just keep in mind that a big chunk of that is that ARPA money that you got at the end of 2020. So, you know, there's another way to look at it from a revenue standpoint that, you know, it'd be good to have at least 50% of the revenues of the subsequent year's expenditures, and you're sitting at 62%. So all in all, I would say Todd County's finances are stable and actually even improving a little bit. So that's good based on sort of where the economy is right now. On the next slide, we look at where the county's received its money, or the revenues for the year, you can see the taxes and special assessments were up just a little bit. As part of that tax revenue, there's the local option sales tax, that the revenues for that were up about 10% for the year, about 100,000. So the other item that jumps out, at the table is, holy cow, intergovernmental revenues dropped quite a bit, like 3 million, a little over 3 million. But again, that's all related to the CARES money that you got in 2020. So at the beginning of the audit, we have a meeting. We say, hey, what are we expecting the revenues to do? And the first thing that jumped out was, well, there's no CARES money in 2021. So this drop in intergovernmental revenues was basically, we expected it, and that's where it ended up. Where'd the county spend its money? For the year, the expenditures were down 1.7 million, and so they're down 1.7 million. The related CARES expenditures were about 3 million, so that means the other expenditures were up about 1.3 million. Couple different factors there. There was some bumps in salaries and wages, which we expected, and if you look at the different categories, you can see the general government section decreased about 1.1 million, but the capital outlay, the very bottom line in that table, for 2021, we started showing the capital outlay in a separate category instead of having it up in the general government section. And the economic development decrease is again related to the CARES expenditures in 2020 and none in 2021. Next page, we look at the individual funds. The general fund is healthy, balanced. Its revenues were down 3.1 million, again related to CARES. Expenditures were down about 2 million. So all in all, last 5 years, the general fund's reserves are strong. And for the last 5 years, the revenues have exceeded expenditures, and it's good to have those reserves. The next page, Public Works Fund. Also sitting pretty well. It's got about a little over 5 months of reserves, and it's been increasing over the last 3 years. And again, this fund is stable, and having stable fund balances is important. If you go to issue debt, get the bond rating agencies like to see adequate reserves on hand even before you issued the debt. So Public Works, very stable. Next page, Social Services, also stable. It's sitting at about 6.5 months of reserves. And for the last 3 years, the revenues have exceeded expenditures for those 3 years. If we go back 4 years, your reserves were at, I would call, low levels, and times were a lot tighter. The CARES grant and ARPA is definitely helping the county as far as stabilizing and building up your reserves to a good level. Solid Waste is an enterprise fund. It's a little bit unique compared to the other funds because it uses the normal private sector accounting standards, but it is also stable and healthy. It's sitting at about 7.25 months of reserves there. For the year, the revenues were up about 340,000, mostly due to I think there's a couple more parcels being charged a special assessment, and there was a bump up in the rates as well. And as far as the expenditures, they were up about 180,000 for the year, and that's mostly in wages and wages and salaries. So financially, the county's in very good shape, very stable. The general fund, Public Works, Community Health, Social Services are all above the recommended minimum levels. I would not say they are exorbitantly high levels. It's good. The county's in good financial position. The Solid Waste Fund is stable too. So overall, I'm required to just remind you to periodically look at the segregation of duties issues, reassign some things if you can. There's no new accounting. GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They issued new guidelines an awfully lot. And when I started, they were at GASB statement number 10. And I never thought in my life I'd see GASB 100. I thought that's when I was going to for sure be retired, but I'm not retiring anytime soon. So I think I'm going to see GASB 100 because they're at GASB 97 right now. So it won't take them long to issue a few more standards. One of the biggest ones that is on the horizon is GASB 87, dealing with lease accounting. I know we've had discussions with staff about some things that got to be pulled together at the county, from the county standpoint, but you don't do a lot of leasing, so I appreciate that because it's going to make the whole process a lot smoother. So with that, it's been great working with everybody here, and thank you for allowing us to serve you. Now I got time for questions.
Questions?
I don't.
Gray hair is really coming on there. The
Excuse
gray
me?
hair.
It's all those new GASB standards I got to learn. All right, well, thanks, and have a great summer whenever it gets here.
Thank you, Todd.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Next, County Assessor.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am here to present an abatement for parcel 03-0028403. This is in Birchdale Township. Background is sent for your review. The Assessor's Office received an application for abatement as per Minnesota Statute 375.192. This application has been approved by the Assessor's Office and the Auditor Treasurer's Office. Pending County Board approval of the application, the property tax will be reduced for 2022 by $1,980. Your options today are to approve the abatement as presented or deny the abatement. My recommendation is to approve.
Okay. You've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion. If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Ditch Ag Inspector. Nancy.
Good morning. I just have one agenda item. It's to acknowledge receipt of County Ditch 22, a hold harmless agreement for ditch maintenance. Recommendation, Todd County Board of Commissioners approves the following by motion. Acting as ditch authority, acknowledge receipt of a hold harmless agreement petition from Roger and Mason Stender to clean part of County Ditch 22 on parcel 11-001-8600, Iona Township, section 19.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add that yesterday Mason contacted me and said that he wanted to add the north-south ditch along their property also there, another 796 feet. So that'll be added to this petition. It's on the same parcel.
So add that.
Add that up, yep.
Okay. Okay, is that okay with you, Carrie?
Yep.
Okay. Barb, okay with you?
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion?
The existing upgrading well may not be representative of upgrading conditions, and that's what's driving that hydrogeologic investigation. The options we have are to authorize the solid waste director to sign for acceptance of BAR's proposal for $17,100, or to deny the authorization to sign the proposal. The recommendation we have for you is for the Board of Commissioners to authorize signature for acceptance of BAR's proposal.
All right. You've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chris, you may have said, and I might have missed it, what's the difference between this one and the first one we just approved?
So the first one is a basically a technician that goes out to the site with what we call a baler. It's like a long, narrow tube, and they collect water out of the wells, and they fill up sample bottles, and they ship it into the lab. And then the lab analyzes that water and makes results. So WIDSEF would do that work, and that person can have a high school degree and do that work. Then the evaluation of the sample results is a licensed hydrogeologist. The individual that we have done work that I have experience with at BAR has 25 years of experience reviewing public and private demolition landfills and, you know, evaluating basically the quality of your water. And that's the part that that they would do. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so the first one we did was they'll get the sample, and the second one will, if I understand it right, examine the sample? Is that?
They examine the numbers or the results from the lab.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Chris, are they only looking for nitrates, or are they looking for other variables within the water?
There's quite a list. It's if I remember right, there's about 50 different analytes that the state requires us to test for.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
And then, Chris, is there any red flags that show up then? What is, I mean, if something comes back highly contaminated or something, how do you resolve that?
Well, it's more complicated than I would have ever imagined. I guess my first statement is there's no clean water anywhere. The only clean water I know of is the deionized water you can buy it in a store.
Yeah.
And that water is actually not healthy to drink because it's so clean it actually pulls nutrients out of your body. There is recently the MPCA did require us to add an additional well, and that well was installed and was sampled last year. If we could go to page 96 of the, it's page 96 of the board packet. Would you be able to look at that page, commissioners?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
85 up on the very top. Just click on the 85 and type it in.
It's the table is labeled Figure 6 manganese concentrations.
Yeah.
So can you see on the right side of that screen a blue set of 3 dots?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's monitoring well 6, and that's the newest well. And for the most part, that well is very clean, but what they are showing is that there is manganese in that. Those are the first 3 samples that were ever analyzed from that well because it's new. The other existing wells are on the bottom of the page. They're the purple and red, and the concentrations are very low. The yellow and orange lines are state standards. IL means intervention limit, and HRL is health risk limit. And what they're showing is there's an elevated amount of manganese in that well. Now, this is where it gets more complicated. Manganese is often very naturally occurring in our geology. So one person may say that you're contaminating the water. Another person may say that you're not because of that natural occurrence of manganese. And that's where, especially in today when there's such a heightened sensitivity to environmental factors, we need to have qualified people that can interpret what that line means given the surroundings that our landfill is located in. Does that help answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you. Gives me a little light on some of those things. So where's the new well located at? Where in that area?
It is north of the landfill. the groundwater generally flows, and I'm sure I'm simplifying, but from the south to the north.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, when you were just
Yes.
speaking, you said we had 6 wells that you were testing?
We have one that's numbered 6. I'm looking at your map, and I believe we're sampling 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe we're sampling 4 wells.
Okay, 4 wells.
That's correct.
Okay, any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, Chris.
Thank you. So the next one was, I believe, 9.2, and we're calling this a shingle sales agreement. And this is actually a really neat opportunity that I enjoy sharing with you. We were approached by a local business called Ideal Construction, and they would like to purchase our shingles at zero cost. The intent is to use the shingles as an ingredient for production of hot mix asphalt. This concept is not new. Such beneficial uses have been reviewed by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and Minnesota Department of Transportation. So I'll go off script a little bit here, but I've done some work on shingle grinding before, and it costs money, and we've looked at putting it into hot mixes before, but previously the businesses in what I will call West Central or Central Minnesota have not really been interested in partnering with us. And there are other places in Minnesota and the region that do it. The metro area and in Wisconsin, there are businesses that do this routinely. So in one sense, it's new because we haven't done it here in our local community. But in another sense, there's been a lot of research on this. And we're not the only ones partnering. This business, Ideal Construction, and another partner that they're working with, another paving company, they have reached out to other counties, including Becker County and Hubbard County and Otter Tail County, to make this type of agreement. We've discussed this with our solid waste committee, and we felt like it would be a good step to establish a 2-year agreement with them. While it's a great opportunity, we don't want to overcommit to it. And if they can prove themselves to do well and succeed at this for 2 years, we would be interested in continuing. We took the agreement that Becker County prepared for the private parties, and we reviewed it. Your assistant attorney was very helpful in reviewing it as well. And what you have before you is the current agreement with just one minor correction that in the board packet, their address is outdated. We have a corrected address in a hard copy that Jolene has for you. So that all being said, the options we'd like to present are for authorization for the chair to sign the shingle sales agreement with Ideal Construction. The other option is to not sign it. Our recommendation is for signature of the shingle sales agreement with Ideal Construction.
Okay, you've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Motion by Becker. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel.
Or did you nod your head yes, Gary? I'm
Well,
sorry.
go ahead.
It doesn't matter.
Discussion. If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, Chris.
thank you. So the last board action request we have is we'd like to have Mike present. We're very much enjoying Mike's help and supervision on our department, and he's worked with Stepp to do a contract renewal. So if I could just turn it over to him.
Okay, thank you. Morning, Mike.
Morning. Yeah, the STEP contract is something that they have done continuously in the past. The program of recycling and sorting product for us is during 5 days a week. It's roughly from 8:30 to 2:30, 6 to 8 hours, or 6 to 8 employees that day. It provides the community and the service for these program people to come in and learn life lessons, and gets them an opportunity to earn some income while providing a valuable resource for us. We signed a new contract, hopefully with them, is what we're asking for today. It's a minimal upgrade just because of the cost of minimum wage. So roughly our cost per year is around $150,000 using that resource. So our action is to get approved by the contract or not to approve the contract. On the back sheet, I believe there is, it shows you the breakdown of our weekly expenses and kind of their work schedule of what is provided by them.
Okay. All right. You've heard the request. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, can we have discussion first? Is this an increase then, Mike, of what we pay them?
Yeah, the rate of, is roughly 50 cents per hour for the lead shift person, they're technically called a foreman, and it's about 30 cents per hour for each employee worker. So the increase is about $75 a week.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion. If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Soil and water. Morning.
All right, good morning. We are here with the 2021 annual feedlot report. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency requires annual reporting for counties to be reviewed and accepted by the Board of Commissioners. The attached report includes all the activities and accomplishments for 2021. The option would be to approve the report or do not approve. Our recommendation would be to approve the report. All the reporting and stuff is attached to the action, but I have Dylan and Tim here, and I think Dylan's going to just point out a couple things from the past year first.
Yeah, I just got a couple notes I wanted to go over. So we have 797 state registered sites. Of those 797, we're required to inspect 7% for compliance, which works out to 56. This past year we actually did 63, and that was with some of the time only having one feedlot officer. So I feel like that was a pretty good accomplishment there. And the second thing is we had 7 sites that were returned to compliance, so they had previously been found non-compliant, and then this past year were returned to compliance. And then as far as permitting, we had issued 2 interim permits and no construction short form permits. Part of that's due to pricing and everything and all that, so we're hoping this year we'll have some more construction. And that's really all I have, other than requesting that if you approve our annual report, that it be signed. So yeah.
If there's any questions, we will take a stab at answering them. Otherwise, just looking for approval of the 2021 annual report.
Is there any other questions? Gary? Okay, I'll ask for a motion, please.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Becker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kneisel. Discussion? If none, All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Health and Human Services.
We've invited staff up here for Marla Schnell's recognition, so so much
Okay.
work has gone in by so many people.
Come on in.
Come on in. You're right, boss. Everybody's just standing up there. Sit chair. Okay.
Wow.
Oh, there you are. Right here. You kind of blended in with everybody.
That's a good thing.
All right, we have a board action here, form in front of you. Just to offer some recognition to Marla Schnell for the Mama Marla's Hike It or Bike It. Some background. After 20 years of Marla Schnell's organizing Mama Marla's Hike It or Bike It, it has come to an end. Marla had a passion for helping children less fortunate, and in 2001, she started the Mama Marla's Hike It or Bike It, a 5 to 10K fundraiser. Each year, the money raised at this event has been used at Christmas time to buy gifts for the kids, usually something they enjoy and clothing that was needed. During these 20 years, gifts have been given to approximately 4,000 children in our community. Just want to take this opportunity to thank Marla, everybody thanking Marla for all your years of work, endless work and dedication. We so appreciate you and what you've done.
So in those 20 years, Marla raised over $70,000, and as Jackie noted, gifts for 4,000 children. So we have a certificate of appreciation from Marla.
Will you please stand? Thank you.
Can I just say a few words?
First of all, I'd just like to say that I hope this isn't done. I hope that me stepping down doesn't mean that it's done. I hope that it continues in the county, and I have no doubt that it will, but just in a different form, that's all. But the other thing I wanted to say is, even though I maybe was the driving force of this, I certainly am not the only one that deserves recognition. There's a lot of people that have stuck through with me in the 20 years, and I really appreciate that, and I'm just going to name a few. Callie Christensen is who I started with, working with at the county, and then it went to Lisa, and now to Kaylee. And they've been great to work with. If I didn't have them here, I don't know that I would have continued this a long time ago. So anyway, I'm glad that I've been able to give back to Todd County. My heart will always be in Todd County. Well, part of it anyway. So anyway, thank you so much for the support.
Well, we can't thank you enough, so thank you.
Thank you.
Would it be appropriate to get a picture?
Do we need a,
Before she leaves. You guys just squishing.
yeah, we're right behind her here. What's that? Sorry.
Doesn't hurt to smile, guys.
I don't want to get in your way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Administration. Chris?
And if I could have Ken come up and anybody else who's here for the Broadband Coalition survey discussion. I'm just going to go through the board action first. So I'm going to go through the board action on Ken's behalf, and then we can have some additional dialogue if that's appropriate. So the background for this, the publication is to approve the use of ARPA SLFRF for broadband survey, and the background is the Todd County Broadband Coalition has been working with the Blandon Foundation in preparing a survey for broadband. The coalition is prepared to distribute the survey to all Todd County residents. The coalition is requesting ARPA and SLFRF funds to assist with the cost of distributing the survey and advertising cost. The anticipated cost is not to exceed $20,000. The ARPA Infrastructure Committee has heard this request, and the Finance Committee has also met and discussed this request. It is recommended to bring forward to the Commissioners for final approval. And the options are to approve the funding request of up to $20,000 for the Todd County Broadband Coalition for costs of distributing the survey and advertising costs associated with promoting the survey participation, or to not approve, and the recommendation is to approve the funding request.
Okay, you've heard the request.
Do we have discussion first, Mr. Joe?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Have we actually seen the survey, the board?
The survey is, Denise, if you want to bring that up, that's out in that.
What I question is, how long is the survey, and I don't know, did you guys review that?
We did, and the survey, and I can let Ken speak to this too, the survey is lengthy, but there's actually two parts, if I'm correct, to this survey. There's one for like if you have cellular data versus just regular internet at your home and what type of internet you have, and I can let Ken go ahead and speak to that.
The purpose of the survey is to gather information so we know what we have where in the county and determine what our next steps will be in getting broadband here. These questions, yes, there's quite a few of them, are the result of other communities that have done this in the past years. This set of questions has been tweaked. We tweaked them ourselves a little bit to customize them somewhat to Todd County. But they will provide us with the information that we really need to have. It's a risk to put a survey out there with a lot of questions because a lot of people are just gonna toss it, understand that. But we do need the information. I don't know how else to go about getting it, but to ask.
Well, we had some discussion last night at our Economic Development Board. Questions that came up were whether you were marketing this before it actually goes out, that people know it's coming. And otherwise, if they're like me, if I get a survey, 9 times out of 10 it's gonna go in the garbage. But if I know what the survey is important to us, then I will fill it out. But that's what I'm asking is, well, the length concerns me, but are the people aware that this is coming? Are you marketing that the survey is coming?
I would say right now at this moment, probably not a lot of people know it is coming.
Okay.
But as Chris mentioned in her write-up there, we have some money included in that request for advertising, and that's where we want to tell people that it's coming and what it's going to be used for and what benefit it would be to them too.
Because I would use social media, I would use the newspapers, I'd use the radio station, I'd get this word out that this is coming and how critical it is that we get the information back rather than people throwing it in the garbage, so.
And we've gone to some, I'll say, unconventional routes as well. I've talked to John Kringen at our school district here. They maintain an email list for all their parents. And he is willing to, well, excuse me, he's willing to broadcast the message for us. And those kinds of things work good for us. For one thing, they don't cost us anything, but they reach a lot of people. And if he can broadcast a message for us that asks folks to look for this, and please fill it out. You know, we can put our own message in there, it's fine. The hospital is agreeable to helping as well, right at their front desk, so they can hand out postcards or whatever.
Good.
Yeah, we've investigated a lot of routes, and we'll probably use a lot of them.
And is it possible all the school districts would have that, like Long
The
Prairie?
Browerville School District is just eager to do something.
Okay.
They know how important good broadband is to them. I mean, it was taught to them very well the last 2 years. And they're very interested in helping. I don't know what form that will take at the moment, but we're certainly going to list them if they have something to offer.
And don't get me wrong, Ken, I support this. I just don't want people throwing it in the garbage and saying,
No, I don't either.
you know, so.
You know, if I could,
We have a question back there.
No, not a question, it's a comment.
Okay.
We also have the support of the clinics in the area, like both Centra Care and Lakewood Health Systems, and they're promoting it, and we'll have surveys there. We will have the survey drop-off points, and we also have it both online. I don't know, where do we stand on the Hispanic version? Anywhere?
That was the other thing that John Kringen offered to us, was the use of his interpreter
Oh, okay.
to translate the survey for us and put it into so the Mexican folks can, or the Hispanic folks can.
Sounds like you've been doing a lot of that. I just was concerned about that because I know we talked last night, if it's lengthy and people don't know what it's about, it's gonna go in the garbage. So, we just gotta get the word out there, this is critical to fill out, so.
I understand 100% what you're saying, because I have thrown away
Yeah.
surveys myself.
I do the same thing, I don't even,
Some days it's just a lot of
don't
junk.
bother with them, yeah, so,
Yeah.
good.
Commissioner Becker?
yep, I was going to say, we had a public health meeting last evening, and they sent out the survey, and Jackie, you got back 19%, and you were concerned about the people that actually returned it, the age, and what you're actually getting the survey from. One specific group, or are you getting it overall? So sending the survey out is definitely, I don't know if that's the best way of getting the information in and out, but, you know, there's concerns with the surveys and getting them back in. The other question I have is on here is direct mailing, and I see that you have Hewitt, Bertha, Eagle Bend, Clarissa, Briarville, Long Prairie, Gray Eagle, Bertram, West Union, Little Sauk, Sauk Center, Post Office North, Osakis, Cushing, Ferndale, Aldridge. What happened to Staples?
It should be on the list.
It's
If
not.
it isn't, it will be.
It will be.
Yes, of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
Well, and I think you've tried to hit, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
like Swanville is a bordering, and Motley, was Motley on there? I didn't hear that, but,
Motley should be too.
okay. Randall and all them come into Todd County, so you should try and get.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, that's certainly not a final list. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be reviewed when we get right down to doing
Okay.
it, so, yes.
Thank you. It was just some discussion we had last night at our Economic Development
Sure,
Board.
appreciate the comments. That'll help us too, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add, having that amount of up to 20,000, that's going to be helpful for them, having that advertising before the survey goes out, and then during the survey, when it's out there, just reminders for people to fill it out. So I think having that up to amount will really help.
Yep. Absolutely.
So was the question on the, about who the provider was? If it's, do people know who their provider is?
Some
As-
people probably don't. That's a very real phenomenon.
Okay.
It is.
And if they leave it blank, then they leave it blank.
Okay.
But the ones that do know, it's certainly there to fill in, yes.
It's right there in question 16. To the best, do you know who your current provider is? And there's a I don't know
Yeah.
on the screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I'll fill you in on, at the very end of the survey, there's a web address to go to do a speed test from your home internet.
Yeah, good.
The computer on the other end of that speed test is gonna test your speed, but it's also gonna record your address and your provider and your speed. So, when you get this survey, certainly we want you to do a speed test. We'd really like you to do the speed test 3, 4, 5 times in a week, because it varies throughout the day and different days. So,
That's probably the most important part of your survey right there, is take that speed test.
it's a very big part of it,
Because
yes.
when we did it for CTC, at home, our speed test wouldn't even go through, it was that poor.
Yeah.
So, and that's what people have to see, is
Yes,
that speed test, yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Exactly right.
if I may, we also talked about some areas that are currently completely served with
Yes.
high-speed broadband access, those are areas we might want to exclude for the survey, because it would be a little bit of a waste to be
Well,
polling.
yes, in areas where we know they're already well-served with good quality broadband, it's no sense us wasting our resources there.
It would
And a
be,
prime example is in the city limits of Long Prairie. We will
yeah,
not
well,
mail
and you've
surveys.
got that section north of Staples, but it's such a small,
Mhm.
you know, when you overlook at the whole map, how it jags that boundary line to the west is,
If we can separate that out with the post office's
yeah.
delivery routes, we'll do that. But we may wind up sending some surveys so we don't have to. But the big one in the county is within the city limits of Long Prairie. We're not gonna send surveys there. Those folks already have two good choices for broadband.
Yeah, 'cause I got it on the north end of Lake Osakis.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
you.
Any further discussion? Let's see, we have to have a motion, please.
So moved.
Ooh, tie there. I'm gonna say Kneisel, Kirch,
Oh.
or,
Gary's so quiet down there, I can't hear him.
yeah.
Well, the chair's right here.
He's got my ear.
You
Right.
gotta have your hearing fixed anyway.
Yeah, I do. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Thanks.
Oh, and thanks for the coffee this morning.
Standing reports.
I have a few things. Jolene and I attended election training after our last meeting. Quite intense and very well given and perceived. I also attended the Mako district meeting last week in the cities and had good discussions on upcoming legislation that they're still working on, hopefully pounding out by the end of the month here. Extension meeting this evening for those of you that are on that committee with me. Taxes are due this month, so our counter and our mail has picked up significantly with people paying taxes, which is a great thing. As you know, the audit was complete today by Doug's presentation, so now we will begin the budget process and get that going and punching away at that this summer. And notices of filings have been published and are on the website, so I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. Thank you.
Commissioners.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I attended the West Central Juvenile Detention Center meeting up in Morehead last week and actually come back with some good news that possibly we may have a reduction in what we owe them this year, just because they've been full and utilizing the new facility. So it's in the discussion with the board and the administrator there, how much reduction each county would receive. But so that's good news. What maybe see what happens.
Okay.
Well, just a report, they are full up there. The new facility is running great, and all the counties are pretty well happy.
Commissioner Becker?
Yeah, I'd like to, we had the annual township meeting over at Clarissa. I think Gary and Randy and I were there, and very well attended and a lot of discussion going on. And Chris is there also and spoke. Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Kneisel?
Guess I'm all right.
I just want to thank the public for attending our April 19th meeting. I thought it went very well for the amount of people that were there. Yes, we are listening. I've heard comments after that, you know, I don't know why we should say anything because you guys aren't going to listen anyways. And that bothers me because I hear the public very clearly. And once again, we will work on that. We will work on keeping our levy in check. But, you know, as far as the valuations, it's just a crazy world out there right now. It's all over. It's not just Todd County. I've had people from Texas tell me it's happening in Texas, it's happening in South Dakota, it's happening all over. So, but in order to control that, we have to really control our levy, control our county spending, keep our county government from growing any larger. So I will leave it at that, but again, I'd like to just thank the public for attending and voicing their concerns. So with that, coordinators report.
Mr. Chair, just a update on our ARPA internal committees that we've been working through. Last Friday, we had a facilities committee. We talked a little bit about proposed ARPA projects coming from facilities, and I'm hoping very soon, if not the next work session, we would be doing the first one in June to start looking at a complete list.
Okay, and with that, we will recess until the 17th. We'll start the work session in 5 minutes. Welcome to the May 3rd, 2022 Board of Commissioners work session, and we will start. First up is Todd County Personnel Board of Appeals Policy.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So the first document we're looking at is the Todd County Personnel Board of Appeals Policy, which would be provided to the Personnel Board of Appeals in directing them how to do their jobs. The second document provided by the Policies Committee is Section 4.05, the grievance procedure in personnel policies. And then we've added Section 4.05. Did I say 4.04, the grievance procedure, and then added 4.05, the Personnel Board of Appeals.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
Mr. Chair, if I can just add a little bit of dialogue to this. So this Personnel Board of Appeals policy is coming into place, as we know, because we have left Minnesota Merit, and because of that, this process is required. We've spent a lot of time through Policy Committee on this specific policy. I think we've met for the last 6 months on this, so it's been a long process. We did run this through labor attorney for any additional comments, and we feel that we do have a strong policy in place and also a good guiding document for that Board of Appeals. Once we have that established, we have a policy for how they specifically operate.
Mr. Chair, if I may, why is this policy so long? I hate long policies.
I understand. Just wait until I get the next one. Well, one document, there's two documents here. So one is for the Board of Appeals,
Yeah.
and they get that one. And then the other one is 2 pages long that goes into the personnel
Well,
policies.
2 pages back, both,
True.
yeah, double-sided. So, to me, when you get a long policy, that's when you get a lot of confusion, issues, and, you know, we put too many if, ands, or buts in there. Sorry.
Understood. Much of it repeats statute. So,
Yeah, well, I just think they're too long. I do not like long policies because it seems like we're just kind of like, managing everything right down to the nitty gritty, and I don't know why we do that, but, I understand you're probably quoting state statute, but when you get into long, policies, you just open yourself for more issues.
understood.
Mr. Chair, I think what we could have done to make this shorter is just make a line that says reference state statute instead of spelling out state statute. That would have made it probably a little bit shorter. Just do the reference versus
Yeah,
spelling it out.
Once
but-
we start spelling out things, they just we're open up for issues, and that bothers me, because then someone can wordsmith and take it apart and say, okay, this means that and that means this, and here we are. So that's my input on that. I'm not a fan of big, long policies.
This policy in another neighboring county is about 42 pages long, so we were pretty pleased with getting this down to a couple of pages.
Well, thank you for doing that, but,
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's noteworthy is there's very few policies like this out right now, because we're kind of trending the first water, per se. The other problem, I think, that as we're going through this is the Board of Appeals, that 3-person board that the commissioners will have to appoint. It was another part of this that was interesting, and who do you appoint and the list of qualifications we would like to see. So that's listed out in this also. Jackie, you sat through most of it, Jenna. You know.
Difficult thing to try and wrap up.
It is.
And put in because it may never be used. So
Yeah.
even if you appoint somebody, they may never have to represent, which we hope is the case.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, maybe with a long policy, we're deterring the appeal, huh? It's so long, I don't want to appeal it. Maybe, maybe that's your point there, I don't know, but, it just seems like I thought when we left the merit system, we were going to simplify things a little more and speed it up, but to me, it appears we've complicated it more, but maybe I'm looking at this wrong.
I think the thing to note is what Jackie said is this, we're required to have this policy, but it rarely gets used in other counties. So rarely, people have put this in place and then never used it, thank goodness. But we have to find 3 people who will serve on this and, rotate their terms and all of those.
Yeah.
The other thing is the other counties aren't bringing it forward quite as speedy, and we're not really being speedy, but they're I think everybody's kind of dragging their feet, bringing this policy forward. Has Morrison brought it forward yet or not? They have not.
I don't know if Morrison County has specifically finalized theirs. I know they were working on it. There are other counties that do have this in place and have adopted it. I'm going to just reference Crow Wing because they're the one that has like the 42-page policy on this. So there are some counties that have it adopted. And we are required to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, this will be on the 17th, correct?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Administrative services, financial support, community health update.
I'd like to come up and do a spring update just for Health and Human Services in the fall. We do next unit, so I'll just let
Come on down. Good morning.
Good morning.
You have the microphone.
Sure.
I
Lori, you
can
wanna
start? Sure. We can start with the Child Support Office update. In 2021, Todd County distributed $2.9 million in child support collections. We continue to exceed statewide averages in the 5 federal performance measures. And those are, as a reminder, paternity establishment, order establishment, collection on current support, collection on arrears, and then cost effectiveness. So we do continue to review our current procedures to look for ways, of course, to increase our performance thresholds in hopes to maximize those incentives. One way we looked at that this year is, well, about a year ago, April of 2021, we submitted our notice of interest to participate in the state's driver's license suspension pilot, and that started back in September of 2021. So counties were selected from northern, southern, and metro region, and there were 12 participating counties total, us included. The long-term goal of the pilot project was to enhance driver's license suspension process so that it's fair to the payers and more effective in collecting child support payments. The goal surrounding that, or the intent, was to use what they call procedural justice concepts. So procedural justice is kind of this idea of people perceiving a process to be fair, and with their involvement, even if the outcome isn't ideal, they still think it's fair because they were a part of that process. Throughout the program, they developed like a case assessment for each case, so the workers would review the cases, reach out to the payers, try and determine if there's certain barriers in place that's preventing the payment that would lead to the driver's license suspension. So we're just wrapping that up here. The workers have through June to complete those assessments and submit them to the state. And then the state will look at that data in hopes to maybe change some statute or at least policies and practices surrounding the current driver's license suspension. a lot of time and effort went into that for the workers this past year, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may, why would we just show an interest? Why don't we just do it?
What do you
Or
mean?
why don't we participate? I mean, period, just get it done with. Are you?
We are
Okay,
participating,
good.
yes.
I thought you said you were just showing an interest.
No,
And
we've submitted our,
I would
kind of
rather you
letter
just
of
do it and get it
interest.
over with, because it's, if they're deadbeat, we need to go after them. So, that's, the other thing is, I have one question. Are we recovering administratively or prosecutorial on the collections? Are we prosecuting?
Right now, we're just doing administrative enforcement remedies. Prosecuting is, our contempt process that just resumed back in September. So as part of this driver's license suspension pilot, we're trying to take care of those cases before they get to court.
Okay, so there's really no consequences but repayment then?
For the cases that would meet the contempt criteria, yes, we'll bring them forward. So we're looking at resuming those again, and kind of using this assessment as part of this driver's license suspension pilot to really review the cases to make sure that the ones we're bringing into court on contempt are solid cases where we don't think there's any barriers to payment.
Okay, again, I express my feelings on that. I believe that we should be pursuing prosecution, because if we're just collecting administratively, it's just like if I'm a deadbeat, I just pay, or you collect through Social Security or tax revenue, whatever recapture, or I get your driver's license suspended. Not a big punishment, just something, I get a slap on the hand. So my preference is that we prosecute these people so that there is consequences. Lisa's heard this lecture from me before. So my question is, are we not pursuing prosecution because there's a reluctancy on another agency to prosecute?
No.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah. And it's more, we weren't seeing the results that we had hoped for through that process. The intent isn't to put the non-payers in jail. I mean, our intent is an incentive to get them to pay, kind of if you have 30 days
Well, I understand
hanging
that.
over your head.
But a couple days in
they
jail
might
gives you a little incentive to pay.
Sometimes.
Yes.
That's enough of my lecture from the hard school, but, sorry, I know you're doing your job, but it's my feelings, and always has been, that these guys need to be stepped on, because otherwise they just lollygag around, try and beat the system, and there's kids out there that need the support.
I agree with that
And
completely.
so,
It'll
and
be,
I appreciate what you do, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the results of this
Yeah.
study. And a lot of the work that was implemented, our workers were already doing, which was really reassuring. The child support officers were trying to be proactive in reaching out, and especially during COVID when we didn't have those administrative remedies, and contact was
Good.
all we could try.
Thank you.
so.
I'll let you off the hot seat now.
So I have a question. Do we have any illegals paying child support?
It's not a barrier. There's certain barriers, like if we don't have reciprocity with certain countries.
Okay.
But if we have enough information and are able to, say, implement income withholding through an alias that they might work under,
Okay.
it's possible that we have
All right,
them paying.
just thought I'd ask that question.
Well, first of all, Randy, they probably can't ask if they're illegal.
Should be able to.
Lisa?
They may already have that information from the referrals they get from.
Wow. We're a little hard this morning, so we're just gonna,
Yeah, I actually don't think I have anything to cover today.
Take up our 15 minutes for everybody.
Okay. Next.
Okay, that'll be me. I didn't actually bring any program updates today. I wanted to bring your attention to something that we're going to try with, in partnership with Rural Minnesota SEP, for our participants in employment and training, the employment and training program through cash assistance, those receiving cash assistance. So on June 29th, we will be bringing to the county a semi-truck and trailer filled with virtual reality equipment. The truck and trailer is named Big Ideas. It's a nonprofit that travels from town to town, teaching people about trade skills that they may have no opportunity to take part in otherwise. This is going to be funded through our MFIP Consolidated Fund, and those in attendance, again, will be those participating in employment and training through the Minnesota Family Investment Program. So this truck and trailer has visited more than 100 sites in Minnesota. It began in March 2021 in New Ulm. They're working on adding more simulators and bringing on a second trailer soon. The mobile classroom offers up to 26 virtual careers, such as welding, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, commercial sewing, computer-aided design, and carpentry. So we're looking forward to this as an opportunity for people to come in and actually try these different trades hands-on. It sounds like it's been very successful in other counties, so we thought it would be worth it costs about $2,300, give or take, and I didn't get the exact, that's just an estimate, but we can use our consolidated funding for that purpose and teach some trades, hopefully.
Okay. Any question?
Not for Lisa, I don't.
Yeah, no. I'm not taking questions today.
Actually, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
because,
I think so
you know,
too.
the skills needs to come back, the skills training, and it really does. So otherwise, people are taking college degrees and sitting out there doing nothing, so.
And I think it's going to be good, a good way to bring people in and hopefully get them interested in pursuing a trade.
Right.
Good. Okay. Who's next?
That's all I have.
Jenna? I'm here to talk about money.
Oh.
We'll save Catherine for last. I do have just a little handout that I brought with, and thank you, Denise. So we've talked a lot about the probate and our estate recovery program, mostly in the property area. And I thought I would just share another area where we have had some success in our collections, and you might even have success in this area as well. So, Minnesota unclaimed property is handled by the Department of Commerce, and it's any business or organization that can no longer find the owner of some funds that they may have. They send it there. I think it's after about 7 years. So then that money sits out there until someone claims it. So you can look on yourself, you can look on deceased people. If we have a legitimate claim, we can look those up and see if they have some unclaimed property. So if you hit page 2 of that. So we've been working on it and in the collections department, and the nice thing is this can go toward county paid burials as well. So if we've had a county paid burial, we have a legitimate claim that we can go online and claim those monies. This year we've spent some efforts on that, and so far for 2022 we have collected $44,000. So 13,000 of that is county paid burials, which we keep 100% of that money back in the county, and 31,000 was for MA estate recovery, and that's about the 25% that we keep. And then total for the last 4 years, we have collected $80,000 in that program. I think that we've helped the auditor's office collect some funds that are actually in the name of Todd County. So sometimes money gets lost for the county as well.
Yeah, I have to shout out to a past employee, Karen Hudala reached out to me and said she had just been combing
She
it.
saw some
and
money.
she's seen some that were listed Todd County, so she called me and she's like, hey, have you ever been on this? And I said, actually, I had been, but I hadn't seen the Todd County one. So she's the one that brought it to my attention that there was some for the revenue department sitting
Yeah.
out there that Carrie in your department was
Yep,
able to help me
helped out.
gather that money, so.
So,
Work that site almost every day and find
Yeah.
complaints, and just as timing and when it was submitted and put in, so we plan to continue to work it multiple
Yeah.
times during the year, just to see if there is any, anything that we hadn't seen the time before since
Yeah.
we've been on it. But I, definitely go out there as you as an individual,
Mhm.
you may have some, claims that are out there that is a family member's name or your name. It's a quite extensive list.
yes, it is.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Jenna, on the medical assistance estate recovery, you say approximately 25% of this is kept by the county. What, is that a sliding fee?
It
or-
depends on the actual program for medical assistance. They pay at different rates. The county gets to keep as an incentive. So if we, for example, if they were on medical assistance, but they were in the general assistance area, we keep 50% of that. But if they were on like the alternative care waiver, we keep like 12%. So the majority of what we have is in regular MA, and it's at that 25%. And
Thank you.
it typically works out, it evens out to around that each year. So I did include the website there. One of the reasons we've been looking back at people who passed away more than 7 years ago, because a lot of that property won't show up for about 7 years. So you're looking way back when you're looking for this purpose. And boy, there's a lot of money out there, so. And then I just included, we talk a lot about the property and the real estate recoveries that we do, but I just thought I would share the other areas that we also collect funds for on the estate recovery program, and county paid burials. So that's what that last page is. Some less known ones are like capital credits from local co-ops. We've collected quite a bit of money from those. And for sure, when we've started calling the local co-ops, they said Todd County was the only one that was calling on that. So Stearns Electric, I think, was one of them, and they said they never hear from any of the other counties, but those funds are out there. So we're finding little ways to just keep
They even
plugging away.
post theirs in the papers, the people that don't
They
claim their
do.
property. so.
So we just send in the right paperwork, and they send that right over. So,
Well, nice. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Next.
Thanks, Jenna. I will stay positive for my update today. Apologize, Commissioner Newman and Commissioner Becker, who heard this last night, but at our Public Health Advisory meeting. I just want to touch on 2 program areas in my unit that I think are really positive and show some real promise. So in our WIC Women, Infant, and Children program, again, that's for prenatal moms and children through age 5. We've seen our numbers increase, and WIC, as a reminder, is still under the federal emergency declaration, so they are still virtual visits or telephone visits for our WIC population. However, we've seen our numbers rise from 582 in March of 2019 to 694 as of March this year, 2022. And just in the last 2 years since the pandemic, we've raised our numbers by about 50 additional clients. I spoke about this last night, but I think this flexibility with WIC that they're providing now, and I really hope the federal government continues it to a point. I think we have some high-risk moms, and we're able to identify them and pull them into home visiting. But with WIC, it's really an opportunity. It's a nutrition program, right? We want to get the benefits out there. And what's been really positive with being able to do telephone visits versus in-person visits is we can catch these moms when they're on a break at work, right? It's a 15-minute conversation. We can catch them in the evenings. Other times, it's very challenging to load up that newborn baby and bring them into the county for a visit. And we've also collaborated with healthcare to get height, weights, hemoglobins from their office so that we can have that in our documentation as well. That's typically why we like to see new moms and babies in person, is so that we can document some of those biometrics. But it seems to be working very well, considering what we've done with the pandemic, and now that we're 2 years out seeing clients in person, we've really tried to just focus on identifying clients that are high risk and really could benefit from a nurse coming in to visit. So I think it's worked incredibly well, and I hope with the declaration possibly ending in October, possibly, that the federal government might be making some changes long-term with WIC that allows us more flexibility, because I think that's something that rural areas, we really need that, you know. So that's WIC. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, not doing the home visits kind of a little bit scary because we're not seeing what's really taking place at the home.
We are still doing home visits. So to clarify, WIC was an office visit, right? So when you were a mom on WIC, you brought your babies into the office. We did a height, weight, hemoglobin. Any mom who's high risk, and when we're talking to them on the phone, we offer a public health nurse visit.
Okay.
So we still go out into the home.
That's good, because I'm just a little concerned about
Exactly.
something
Our
that
family home visiting caseload has risen quite.
place at the home.
Yes, exactly. Because you're absolutely right. Until you're in that home, you can't always assess what the needs are. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I do have one more thing to talk about, if that's
Right.
okay. I just want to highlight our Healthy Homes grant. You know, this is a grant we received last fall. We really didn't start implementing till almost January, and I have a story to tell you. I've taken out all the identifying information, but I just want to explain how well this program is working and what the needs are in our community. So, as you guys are well, David Detterman does the majority of this work for us. So, we identified a single mom with 3 kids. She works full-time. She had a water pipe burst in her basement, flooding her entire basement, ruining her furnace, her water heater, everything you would expect. Through EAP, she was able to get a new furnace, which was wonderful, but she still had a burst water pipe and had no running water for 6 months. We were trying to find ways to help her, but it was challenging. Again, we don't really have a county fund for that. So working through with EAP and then working with our local charitable organizations, 2 church groups, we were able to raise $3,000 to fix her water pipe. So none of this was county funds. We were able to work with Todd Electric Co-op, who just came to us with their appliance replacement program, and get her a new water heater. So now she has running water for the first time in 6 months with her children. We were also able to put in smoke detectors as well. So I just want to highlight that as a really amazing story of how we've collaborated with not only the county services, but then reached out to local charitable groups that want to help, you know. So, and of course, we also had an amazing electrician and plumber that did this for a reasonable rate, knowing the concerns that we had, and also prioritize this for this mother. So I think we all know the concerns of what could happen to someone in those stressors in their life. And so getting this mom running water allows her to continue working and take care of her children. So I just want to touch on that.
Great. Good job.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not,
Lisa, make sure she comes back.
thank you. Regional EMS funding.
Yes, this has been brought up at our regional EMS meetings the last month or so, and what it's talking about is opioid funding that's going to be coming forth from the state of Minnesota. And what the region is looking for is they're looking for 15% from each county. And I've got the county rates in the paper. I've got 2 extra copies up here if Jackie or Steve would like it, because basically it's going to cut into your part of the opioid funding. There's a breakdown of what it would cost each county, and it lists the county, it lists the amount of money they're going to be receiving. And it's for the full 18 years. And what it's going to do, it's going to provide the staffing for our regional director and appoint 5 part-time staffing, and it'll basically keep them going for the next 18 years. EMS is still going to after the 25% that the state is keeping yet for their trainings of the fire departments and ambulance services and so forth, and that's basically the funding that they use. The question they have is they would like to see it be 100% of the 12 counties involved in order to implement this, and the counties are Benton, Cass, Crow Wing, Kennebec, Mille Lacs Lake, Morrison, Pine, Sherburne, Stearns, Todd, Wadena, and Wright counties. So basically this is just to inform you that that's what they're looking for, And they're looking if there's gonna be any problems with any of the counties supporting this at this time, I guess. So, and Marion is our regional director, and her phone number and so forth is on the bottom of the page. So, yes, Jackie?
How do they plan to address those counties that may not?
I think right now what they're, and this is all up in the air yet, is they're hoping it's going to be 100%. The only county that's really questioning it right now, I believe, is Kennebec County. The rest of the counties have showed positive influence into doing that 15%, you know. And I don't know how they'll go forward if one county will say, absolutely, we're not in favor of this at all. If they're going to, the rest of the counties go forward, or if they're going to just scrap the idea. That's all up in discussion, but that's why I wanted to bring it to this work session. Get some feedback and.
The opioid settlement, and I haven't done a lot of work on it yet, those funds should be coming, I think, is around prevention.
Yes, yes.
And EMS,
And basically, that's who gives out the drugs.
The treatment on site.
Yes, yes. And so, and the members of the regional board felt it was much better when they worked through the regional board and having one person being able to divvy out than each county on their own.
So Barb, you
Yes.
were getting seatbelt funding, so is that totally zeroed out now, or is there
Pretty
still
much
some?
so.
Okay.
It is gone down, and that was our main funding in the past
Correct.
years, was the seatbelt funding. We're still going after the state for, and it should be, have a different source of funding, but this would keep the region going at least.
Does this
at a
formula
minimum.
include the seatbelt funding too?
This formula here is strictly the opioid funding that we would be getting.
So the seatbelt funding would be above and beyond that?
Yes, and that would be used for trainings or other things that the fire department needs.
have
Yeah.
you heard an update legislatively how that's coming up?
We had a meeting Friday, and they're talking about maybe getting one big lump sum up first. And they don't even know how the funding's coming or when it's coming yet, you know.
So is the request pending
They,
whether they get their increase or not, or is they're requesting this, whether they get complete funding or not?
well, it would be 15% of whatever funding each county would receive
Of the settlement.
of the settlement.
Because I know legislatively they're working on, more funding for local EMS.
Okay, yeah.
So when they're talking about training for like fire departments and stuff, they talk about like their first responder training or?
Yes.
We're getting that, five sort of getting.
Region 5, and we're fortunate because we're one of the few. Wadena gets Region 5. We do Morrison. Yeah, the rest of our region does not fall into Sourcewell training. You know, but the bigger counties are giving a lot more dollars than what us or Wadena would be giving. Just to bring it to light so that you know that we are discussing this, opinions if we should continue or not, you know, kind of where the county kind of feels like we should be going.
So if this doesn't happen, what happens to EMS, the EMS committee down there? or
Well, if we do not continue to get funding, it would disappear eventually because we're slowly every year spending our reserves, and we've taken out a lot of the trainings and a lot of this because we just do not have the funds for it. Well, so as I receive more information, I'll pass it on, but that's kind of let everybody know what's going on down there.
So it looks like we are slated to receive a total of $840,000 for the opioid settlement. They'll front load the first couple of years, and that's gonna be over an 18-year period.
That's correct.
So looking at maybe, I mean, if you evened it out, $46,000 a year for Todd County over the 18 years, so roughly $7,000 for EMS.
Yeah. Yeah. And they actually have it broken down they sent out a new, paper that it has it broken down all the way to 2032.
So this EMS board now where she's at, does Stearns County provide the housing for her office and stuff, or is that? I know where it's at, but
It's,
she's in the Stearns County building, I know, so,
I believe she had to move out.
okay.
I believe she's located in another part, because she used to be at the road or,
Right.
yeah. And I don't belong, we haven't met down there for a long time now. Everything is by Zoom meetings now. Yep. So, just for your information.
Alrighty,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay. Next, staffing discussion.
So we're just gonna talk a little bit about, it started a couple, 2-3 years ago already, to run 2 dispatchers at all times. It's just, the call load is demanding it. There's more, obviously, there's more tasks that legislation's put on them. We went, I think, to personnel 2 to 3 years ago. We got, go ahead and get part-timers to fill these shifts. Problem we're having is it's hard enough to find a full-timer, let alone a part-timer. Nobody applies for the jobs anyways, part-time. One of our part-timers that we have hired, she's one of 2 that don't have a full-time job. One of the 2 that don't have a full-time job is retired, doesn't want to work a lot of hours. So we got one that's working the bulk of the hours. She's already getting benefits because she's the only one that can fill 90% of these shifts. So basically, we'd be adding another, making it official, making her full-time and adding another. We're trying to piecemeal it together with the part-timers we have, and it's getting harder and harder. We opened it up, I don't know, what was it, 3 months ago or so? And we got 4 applicants. Out of that 4, 1 showed up, and it wasn't someone we could hire. So we decided at that time to see if we can get this moved into a full-time positions to get us up to 2 people at all times. Got some numbers, basically. Full-time, but on dispatchers in the past several years from legislation and more demands of the call load, stuff like that. And the surrounding counties and what they're doing, so. Go ahead, Cyril.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen an increase in our call volumes, which is why we had asked and started the part-time where we have that second person during the busy time. So for all intents and purposes, it's anywhere from noon to midnight. Some shifts are 8 hours, some are 10, some are 12, just depending. The weekends, we have them there a little bit longer to help cover that. So we're really struggling in those areas to continue to give that coverage with the part-time staff that we have. As Steve noted, we have one that's essentially working full-time hours. Some weeks it is, some weeks it's not, but it's enough to get her those prorated benefits. With those increases and with some of the legislation that's come through where they're mandating some of this additional training and additional services to be required, and there's just much more coming on the horizon, I'm sure. Some of you have heard some of that, some of with the mental health legislation and some of those things, along with the training and certification piece that's currently going through the process and passed the House Omnibus Bill last week. There's going to be more to come, and it's a lot for them to handle. It's a lot for them to handle with just one person there. So we're doing the best we can with it to get them enough assistance during those times where they really, really need it. I mean, ideally, having 2 there all of the time would be our optimal goal, but we're trying to work towards that. So if we can at least get this secondary coverage during the majority of those busy times, that would certainly be a benefit. And having these be full-time positions really makes that a lot easier. with part-time staff, it's kind of up to them what their availability is, so sometimes we do struggle. We've had some out on medical leave this, recently, so I pick up where I can in there just to try and make it work, because there are times where 2 or 3 people aren't enough in there. But we really are finding with the call volumes and those high volume times, it's pretty consistently that gap, so that's really where we want to focus our coverage.
And we also have to, calls come in for medical purposes. Our dispatchers are all trained to give that medical advice or basically help them out with this medical. If we get 911s coming and they gotta stay on the line with this person, we've got one person, or we got 911s and phone calls that aren't being answered because they're busy, tied up with somebody having a heart attack.
So it's mandated for us to either provide, telephone CPR is the mandate. So it's mandated for us to provide those instructions to the callers by law now. So we went a little step further and we provide them the training for the full emergency medical dispatch so that they're able to feel like they can provide some of those instructions to all of our callers, not just the CPR callers. So there is certainly a lot that's changed even just in the last few years in that. And I would anticipate in the next couple of years that's going to be even more, especially, like I said, with the training and certification piece and those things coming through, which is anticipated to pass in the Public Safety Omnibus Bill this session. We're going to see that. So this definitely will help take a little bit of weight off of that, changing these over to a full-time position where we kind of had that guaranteed person in there, and we're able to schedule that appropriately rather than try and kind of piecemeal it with the part-timers that we have. As Steve said, our retired person, it could be any day and they leave. We were fortunate to pick up one part-time staff last year that's fairly available to us. Her full-time jobs are pretty flexible, so she's able to do that. And then, as Steve noted, we have the one that's pretty much working the full-time hours. The other part-time staff that we have pick up where they can, but they're very limited based on what their full-time jobs are. And our last couple part-time hiring attempts have not gone well. So we're hoping if we shift gears and kind of look at this as a full-time opportunity, maybe we'll have some better luck.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Steve, what's your balance in your 911 funds?
We're right around 300,000 without pulling it up.
And am I correct in saying that you can use them funds to hire?
Currently, those are not allowable for salaries. That's also a subject that's in discussion right now as far as the FCC did change some of those rules this year. However, they have not changed yet in statute. I was part of the work group that was working on the rewrite of the 403 statute, both in the governance section and the technical portion, which deals with those 911 funds. That did not pass. That did not make its way into the omnibus bill this year. So that's going to be presented again in 2023. Hopefully we have better luck, and if at that time then the statute changes, then we could possibly offset some of those funds, or offset some of the salaries with those funds.
They're looking at a percentage, not the full wage on some of that, isn't it? Is that correct?
It's still kind of in flux as far as
Like in
the FCC.
23.
Yeah, the FCC has allowed that salaries to some degree would be allowable
Do we
expenses.
use some of that funding for signage?
No, we do not.
Signage is not an allowable.
That's what it was
expense.
before, but they must have
It
changed
was.
it then, huh?
We changed it because that was not a correct use of those funds, so we changed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, by statute, that's
Then
not, so.
the other question I have is, at least when I was there, training time was quite lengthy. So what is training time for a full-time dispatcher?
Somewhere in the realm of 300 hours. If they pick it up faster,
If
certainly
they get
it's-
it all, yeah.
Yeah, certainly it's less, but 300 has kind of been the average. Some are 250, some are 320, but it's somewhere in there. The training costs, or the salary for the training officers, is an allowable expense by statute, so we
From
can
911
recoup.
funds.
Yep, we can recoup.
Yeah, but that's not the big impact. What we want is.
It's certainly not, but the majority of our other expenses in the dispatch area are covered by the 911
Right,
funds, and we're
The
pretty.
equipment and stuff. is-
Yep.
And another thing that hamstrings us a little bit too is they're not considered an essential employee, so we gotta stick to the 40-hour-a-week schedule. We can't, out of a 2-week, pay period, we can't work them 30 hours this week and 50 hours to make it 80 hours. It has to be 40-40.
Yeah,
So
it's similar to what,
Well,
which would certainly ease scheduling if that was an allowable
With
thing.
dispatchers, you gotta be more careful of burnout and productivity for the length hours they work because
Absolutely.
of
It's
the,
happening
because of the
throughout
call,
our
you know, call.
industry.
Yeah,
Right.
we're certainly not alone.
Right. The other thing is, if I may, what do you have budgeted this year, just in part-time salaries, no increase in full-time?
We budgeted 120 for part-time salary.
But what about full-time? Did we budget for another full-time employee this
We're
year?
starting that process.
Or is
with
that
the
for next
2023.
year?
Yep.
Is that in next year's budget?
We're gonna
What-
start working on
We
it.
haven't
working.
started the process yet. We'll be starting
But
shortly.
have they made a request, though, to put it in when they start the process, so we know?
Will be, yes.
Okay. So you're just asking for one full-time? What I,
Two full-time.
two, but what I've been seeing is during Chris's thing at the end of the week when she does her summary, is it's continuous recruiting of either a correctional officer or dispatch. And I've seen that for at least a year or more.
Yeah. It's-
Now, if we would stick money in training and they don't work out, that's money we throw it out the window. Am I correct?
That's why
Essentially,
we're
but-
pretty particular on our hiring, that we make sure that if a candidate we don't think is gonna work out.
But we have no
don't offer the job.
guarantee because we don't know.
And there's not a guarantee. The benefit we feel looking at this as a full-time position rather than a part-time position may change the quality of those candidates, and you have somebody that's more
Apt to stay.
apt to stay.
So our part-timers, if we train them all, and all of a sudden Wadena needs a part-timer and they live on the northern end of the county, guess
Yeah,
where they're going?
or some other counties paying more money the way they go, so.
Correct, and that's a struggle too. You know, right at the moment, I mean, it's just the way the world works.
Yeah.
There's so many jobs out there for really similar money, especially where we look at from a part-time standpoint for dispatch. Unless you really want to be a dispatcher, why would you work nights, weekends, and holidays when we can go?
Well, there's a lot of wannabes, but once they get into it, then they aren't bees, so.
The
you know,
full-time,
I-
you're likely to find somebody that's
Yeah, I
more
can remember
likely to
hiring
want.
somebody and they found out, we told them everything, and they worked for maybe 6 months and said, well, I didn't realize I had to work weekends. Boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
So, there you are, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's gonna be difficult just to come up with the money to do this. I don't know, it's gonna be a big impact on them. And I think you do need it, but it's just a matter of coming up with the funds. That's the issue here.
And the majority of it will probably be offset with what's in our current part-time budget,
Yeah.
because we're already
But-
spending it to cover those hours.
But the rotation of the shifts you're gonna need, and vacation, sick time, part-time, off, you're gonna need part-timers to fill that.
Yeah, we're still gonna need
Yeah,
some.
So,
It just, a
it
good
helps.
chunk of
Yeah,
that.
it's a lot easier to
will
do the
probably
scheduling,
offset.
but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a nightmare right now, so.
That's a 12-hour shift, isn't it?
12s and 8s.
They work
12s and
12,
8s, yeah.
so the full-time schedule works 2 12s and 2 8s to make their 40.
So would this person be on, like, two dispatchers, or are you asking just to
Correct.
hire for
So
schedule?
currently, our 4 full-time fill in, and then we fill the second shift or the second dispatcher 2 to 10, 2 to midnight, something like that, with our part-time staff, so that there are 2 people in there during the high-volume times.
And then you're behind him, so you,
And so,
there's
like,
three.
during the day,
She is the
I'm
second.
there, I'm the second person.
oh, okay.
Which takes her away from her other duties.
Right.
But we make it work because we need to. So this would basically put full-time staff in that 2 to midnight window, rather than trying to continue to fill that with part-timers, which has
We can't find.
been a struggle.
So on the job description, is there a request for bilingual? Or no?
put that, I
struggled.
believe we put that as a preferred,
Yeah.
a preferred,
Not required.
but not a required qualification. Yep.
Good luck with that.
And we have, I mean, we have tools for that. The state of Minnesota pays for language line services for 911 calls.
Okay,
So we do have some options there for that.
all right.
It's
Well,
a
you-
struggle to get those people to apply
You-
that are bilingual.
You need bilingual on dispatch and jail, really,
Yeah,
jail is
and we
probably
do
more.
have one in jail,
Yeah.
but he only works a certain amount of time,
Right.
so.
Well, look for money. Hopefully we can put a little pressure on the legislature to come up with something. I'm sure every county's facing the same situation, trying to find help, and
Every
they're
single
coming
county.
and quitting as fast as it can go, you know, so.
Yep. And like I said, the 403 statute, that first part that deals with some of those funding, we're hoping to bring that back to session in 2023. But until that changes, we kind of have to hold by what's currently in the statute, regardless of what the
I
FCC
think you guys need
rules.
to have a big discussion with the finance committee, so.
Yeah, because, you know, we had 350 people at that last meeting, and, you know, that is, so, yeah,
They want their phone answered when they call 911 too.
I know, I understand that. So, bring the numbers, I guess, to the next board meeting. What's you guys' thoughts?
Well, I just soon you bring those numbers, I'd like to see them too, but maybe you can send them out by email to us, but I think the finance committee needs to look at that seriously, and maybe you guys need to get innovative on funding and where we can get funding, and it's, I know every county's struggling, but maybe the sheriff's association needs to put some more pressure on the legislature to say, hey, we're all in the same predicament here, help us out. They got a surplus of 9.3 billion, the way I hear it. And they're all gonna give us maybe $400 back to buy a couple six-packs of beer, well, big deal. Put it to good use.
They said when I was at the, last MSA conference, our, legislative guy said it's actually worse when they have a big surplus like this, because all they do is fight and argue
Or
about
where
how
they're
to
gonna
spend the
spend
money,
it.
and nothing gets done.
Well,
And it's happening. We see it. They can't
yeah,
agree on
they can't
anything.
get along on where they wanna spend it.
Any further
Well, we
discussion?
probably need to talk to, our two current legislators and our senator to see what they can do, because something's gotta be done. I mean, this
And
is critical.
We've had them, like we said, we had our third district meeting, we had a representative from Michelle Fishbach's office there, and we've all been talking to our locals and telling them, yeah, we need more, but how that goes.
Yeah.
They listen, and a lot of times nothing gets happened.
No. All right. We'll move her forward, thanks.
So, bring it to board, or we wanna go to finance, what are we looking at for next step?
I think you gotta, I mean, to me, take it to finance and see where you've got room in your budget, or where you can come up with money to pay
Well,
for this.
Maybe we
you
could
know?
phase it in one at a time, but,
Or
you know.
got the one in. Yeah, the one's pretty much already there.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
just doesn't have the technical title full-time. Yeah, she's just not full-time, she's
Okay.
the title. She's working full-time already. And receiving benefits.
I guess I would go through your budget, find comb your
And
budget, and see if you can come up with the money within your
And those-
budget.
the hourly wage itself is pretty much, I mean, we're already covering those shifts with those people. So the hourly wage part really is gonna balance out with what we've already budgeted for part-time. It's gonna be the benefits that kind of puts
Puts it over.
and above.
Push it over.
And, yeah, go back to finance, see what you guys come up with.
All right.
And I think we can work a little bit more on looking at those actual dollars on what you're currently spending on the overtime, and just see really how close we get.
And the overtime, I try and keep that really as minimum as I can,
If
but
you
it's been
I
a
would like you to
reality.
bring that back to us next time at a work session here, so we can actually look at some of these figures as a board.
Mm-hmm.
See what we can
Yeah,
help you.
if you bring it back to the next work session, it'd be good to see a chart or something, your low times versus your high times and the hours between that, you know.
Yeah, we can certainly pull some of those
Okay.
and make some type of a, give you a little better picture of where those
Of what's,
times are.
what's going
Yep.
on, yeah.
So just so if I understand correctly, it would really be bringing somebody on for the remainder of this year and budgeting for that
And then we would
additional
budget for the
next year.
additional next year. So it's really just to get us through the rest of this year.
Yeah, but with 300 hours of training, you're gonna be right nip and tuck with, getting toward the
One-
end of the year to really.
One of those would already be trained. We know that
Okay.
for sure. We would just move her from her already
Okay.
getting prorated benefits part-time position to
Okay, so
the
move
full-time
one,
position.
would
so-
move one to full-time and then
So that
who's
would be
ready to
pretty
go
minimum.
then, is
Yep.
what you're saying.
She
She's
would be,
virtually-
we would
She's working
just
full-time hours.
schedule her
Okay,
differently. So it really would be the other one that would come on, and whether that would be one of our existing part-timers or,
Yeah,
or some
okay.
other option.
all right, which has got a head start already if he's got
Yeah.
another part-timer. Okay.
Yep. And then, like I said, those training hours, we can offset our full-time salary, our full-time training officer salary
Yep.
with some of those 911
Okay.
funds. That is an allowable expense. So as far as the training piece of that goes, I think it'll
Sure.
pretty much be a wash.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Historic rock wall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm here just to talk about where we are at with the historic rock wall and discuss the documents that we've received and what our next steps are. So I do have a financial cost document that goes along with the construction documents, and I'm just going to give a little background while Denise brings that up. So
Which
it's
one?
the estimate. Third one.
Perfect, sorry about that.
So we, in 2019, in the summer of 2019, the board gave approval to apply for a second grant for the Rockwall project, and that grant was to receive these construction documents. The Minnesota Historical Society did provide $76,000 in grant funds, and the county had a match of $10,000 to those funds. And the deadline for the project was to be April of 2021, but because of COVID, there were many delays in many projects across the state, and we were given additional time. We finally wrapped up this round of grants for the construction documents in late February, early March of this year. So it's taken a long time to get to where we're at, but with that, the construction documents were received, and out of those construction documents, they provided us with an estimated cost. In an effort to help with budgeting for this rock wall restoration, we had the grant, the scope of the project done in two separate phases. Phase one consists of really focusing on the front of the historic courthouse, that portion of the wall, the staircase, the lower plaza, the upper plaza, and also part of the retaining wall. And Denise, if you want to bring up the construction document that's out there, and that is the document number 2. And if we can go to page 14.
Trying to get there, Sherry.
And if I can have your notes.
Sure can.
So phase one of the project is working on this front area of the rock wall, and it will also be this area of the retaining wall. So that's phase one.
Chris, does that replace the stairs and everything, or just the wall?
It's restoration of the stairs, all of the stairs, the wall,
Like,
and part of
what
the
does
wall.
restoration mean? Because those are pretty well, is that,
Restoration and preservation, which is what the grant is, it means that they will take the rocks that are currently there and remove the mortar, and they will try to preserve the rocks the best they can, put in new mortar, and reconstruct that area. There will be cement replaced where there is currently cement, but
because
if
they're
they're
not good,
rocks-
yeah. Well, I mean, the stairs themselves are not good, so does that include replacing them?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
The steps that you're talking about.
Absolutely. So both sides of the staircase, it
Yeah,
includes
okay.
that. And it goes into as much detail as actually the handrails and how the handrails have to be replaced and restored and all of those pieces. So phase one will be this portion, just around the corner of the wall, extending all the way towards the Justice Center wall and that whole front area of the court, the current historic courthouse staircase to the upper plaza. Phase two is just off the corner of the northwest corner, and that will go all the way down to the end of the west side wall. So those are the two defined project areas. Phase one has a cost associated with it, with all the demolition, excavation. There's some stormwater plans that go with phase one, lots of repair and replacement of the stone caps, wall, the rocks, etc. Some electrical work. That cost estimate is just over $1 million for the phase one. And then phase two, as I showed you just previously, that the site work, the wall, the rock work, drainage, all of those pieces comes in at a price tag just under $600,000. When we look at what our next steps are, the next round of grant funds has a pre-application deadline of May 20th. So that's coming up really quick to just submit the pre-application, and then final application has to be submitted by July 22nd, I believe. July 15th. Once that application is accepted, then we would anticipate to find out if we receive the grant by the end of December, and projects could start right away after the first of the year for those grant funds received. For us, what we need to determine is what do we want to, if we're going to go through with applying for this next round of grants by May 20th, what is that cost that we want to request of the Historical Society? So we want to make a request of funds. We talked about this through facilities. We talked about potentially for this phase one to make a request for a third of those costs. We talked about potentially using a third of funds from ARPA funds, and then a third of those funds coming from our current capital improvement or building improvement funds. So that looks at roughly $350,000 per fund. When we look at past projects done with the Minnesota Historical Society, the largest grant that they have provided to date was $504,000, and the match to that was actually $350,000. So we know with the last round of grants that we just went through with them, they provided us with $76,000 worth of grant funds, and we put in $10,000. So it's really just where we feel we are at with the project and the funds.
Chris, with that being said, why are we not asking him for 50% and 25% coming from the other, it'd be 50-50 from that and 50 from the county, but the 50 from the county would be broken up into half.
And we absolutely can do that. And we just had a quick conversation about this in facilities. Sometimes when you are trying to get a competitive grant, when you can show more effort on your part, we might have a better chance at getting the 350,000 from the Historical Society, excuse me. If we go in asking for half of the project, it might be a tough sell with them, but we don't know that.
Don't you think the need would outweigh the percentage, or not?
It could, with looking back at the largest grant that they ever gave and having it be $504,000, I believe that was for a ship up in Duluth. So, I mean, it was a pretty historical, and our rock wall is very historical as well.
Yeah.
But the ship was a pretty historical landmark to receive that significant of a grant. But we certainly can take that approach with a 50-50. This has been a long time coming just to get to this point, and it's great that we were able to do this in 2 phases just to try to lessen that burden. It is a very high price tag. It's good that we do have another funding source such as the ARPA funds, and
You know, when we talk ARPA funds, and I'm very heavy on the ARPA funds with our rooftops with the Justice Building and the 2 annex buildings, and to me, that's has to be number 1 priority with the ARPA funds. Where are we sitting with the balance of those ARPA funds? I mean, if you take the 3 roofs into consideration and what we're putting in there through our own funds and through ARPA funds, you know, where are we actually sitting with our ARPA funds?
all those projects are still working through those committees, coming very soon, hopefully to the board to weigh in on. I don't know that we have a specific cost attached to the roof specifically for annex or for the Justice Center.
For the Justice Building,
Right.
Mitch did not have it.
We don't have that yet,
Yeah.
so it's tough to say.
So until we get that, I would be very hesitant of spending ARPA money on another project until we make sure we have enough to cover those projects.
Yep, so the question would be for, I mean, if we were going to apply for that next round of grants for upcoming
Right.
2023, that pre-application would have to be in by May 20th. And if we don't get in on this round of grants, I would hope that we have an opportunity next year. So that's where it would be.
Chris, who came up and, because this has been going on for a number of years, who came up with the phases of this?
Actually, it was working with BHH partners. It was kind of twofold. When we had discussions with the Minnesota Historical Society and just talked about the significant cost of this project, we asked them if we could take a phased approach for this, and they were in agreement that that would probably be a better way for us to go, so we could actually have 2 rounds of grant funding to help with this. And then we worked with BHH, and I think it was actually through Facilities Committee, we talked about the phased approach, and it's been a while. But BHH Partners, the contractor that we use for the construction documents.
The reason I'm asking, if you go back to phase 1, and I know I'm probably after the fact here, but if we just took care of the stairs in phase 1, just the stairs in Rockwall there, you know, that would reduce, I think, our costs pretty drastically, wouldn't it? And we would accomplish getting the worst part done right away.
Well, and I think the drainage has
Everything
got to
else.
go in that phase 1.
And instead of doing that whole long, well, we're doing a whole street there. If we would just do that, and I'm just throwing a little dart out here to see, but to me, that's been the eyesore, and we have that closed all the time because of water, ice, snow. You know, it's not being utilized whatsoever. I don't even know if we use it much in the summer because it's kind of dangerous, isn't it? So-
It's been blocked off. It's not accessible, and it hasn't been for a couple of years.
And I mean, this may throw it all out of whack, but to me, it would be a priority there just to fix that part and concentrate on that. But
I think with the way that this has been, the scope of work has been designed, I think phase 1, we would not be able to change what
I know,
phase
I'm
1
just
is.
saying.
I think so much of it has to do with the drainage,
Yeah, it could be, but I'm just
and
saying.
that's where we're getting our leaks into the,
I'm glad that that's
Yeah.
phase one, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
if we just concentrate on that part there and get that done, that would be a great accomplishment, so. Because it's sitting there doing nothing. It's a waste.
So the next steps for me would be to bring this back to board to get approval to apply for that next round of grants and just see what the board's appetite is to do that.
And I think you and I've talked, or maybe we talked at some committee here, the wall on the south side is not included on this at all.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That, to me, needs some attention too, because there's a hand railing there, there's a stairs there, isn't there? And that wall is, I mean, actually looks terrible. I'm not sure about the sidewalk, I haven't walked on that, but I don't know what the sidewalk is. So how do we address that one? I mean, I'm just gonna throw you out of whack here a little bit, but how would we address that part there if we could eliminate that wall?
It hasn't been included in any of this scope
Right.
of the project since day one with the conditions assessment. I would probably want to go back and take a look and see if that was constructed at the same time as this current wall.
The whole niche in this whole thing is the Historical Society
I know,
being involved with the
it's a
courthouse
gotcha thing,
itself.
you know?
Yeah, so that's where kind of the,
Yeah, I mean, it's fine that they have their rules, but they just seem to get a little carried away on there.
Yeah, and that, I've been looking at that south side, and it's really such a small, it's a
Yeah.
really small
Yeah, it ain't very
area
tall, is
and
it?
very short, yeah. So, I'm,
So we did a little repair work on the wall, what, 2005?
I think it was 2007.
Okay,
They did
somewhere in
some
there.
prior to that too.
Yep,
Mhm.
so, and the wall was put in when the courthouse was built back in 1800s, correct?
And then additional work was done in 1938 with the WPA project.
Okay. So when was the steps put in down there?
I kind of think that whole front was the WPA project.
Okay, 1938.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
And it's a considerable project, it's a considerable cost, and if we have the additional ARPA funds,
It's an outrageous cost, really. I
It
mean, to me, it's, my God. That's a lot of money.
it
Mhm.
is. So I will be bringing this back to the May 17th board meeting to get authorization to apply for the grant or not.
I've heard
And we'll have to have a
much as
cost
we can.
associated with that.
yeah.
I made, the facility committee did visit with Chris on two. Just throwing it out there, I don't know if you checked into it. If you have anybody that's really into the Historical Society that would want to do donations maybe, or a rich relative, I mean, we'd be open to that.
There's a lot of people
because-
want that done, but it's, who's gonna pay for it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if there's other funding out there that somebody can think of, we'd be open to hear that.
So I will be
force.
looking into that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?